Rich Edson, thank you very much. Rich at the Pentagon with us right now, the Republican presidential candidate in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis. Governor, very good to see you. Your thoughts first off, sir, on these 300 additional troops we're sending to the region, 1,200 in all right now, and that might not be it. What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you, Neil, I look at all these attacks that are going against U.S. positions in the Middle East, and it seems like Biden has people there that are effectively sitting ducks. They're there in probably too small a numbers to really do a whole lot, but they're in sufficient numbers where they're an inviting target. And the response to those attacks has been abysmal. They bombed a couple empty IRGC buildings. So he's inviting more attacks against our troops. They're not doing anything to hold Iran accountable. And yes, the direct response to these attacks, and these are places like Al-Assad Air Base, where guys like me on active duty, I mean, I was there back in the day, 15 years ago. So that's long-standing positions for U.S. forces. But it's not just that. He has not turned the screws on the Iranians financially since this happened. He gave them huge relief from oil revenue, from the oil sanctions. Iran's gotten a lot of revenue from that. He still hasn't taken back the $6 billion. So you got to understand, Iran is the root of all the problems for what's going on in that region, and they're not doing enough. I think that they can get a deal with Iran to this day, which is not going to happen.
You are, and you intimated as much, Governor, the only veteran in this race who has served his country abroad. You were in Fallujah. You talked about what's going on right now with the buildup of troops on our part to deal with these Iranian proxies. Should that include attacks on Iran itself?
Well, look, I think that, we don't want to blunder into another Middle Eastern war. I can tell you, as having been there back in the day, we were in a situation where the mission was murky. We didn't end up achieving a clear-cut victory. It's a sticky part of the world. So I think you got to be very, very careful. On the flip side, you can't just have American troops that people could just take pot shots at. That's not the way it works. Biden I think he owes the American people an explanation of why those troops are there and what they're actually doing. He doesn't seem to have much of a strategy with any of that. But the conflicts that we had in the Middle East, I think, they left a lot of scars, a lot of veterans' families. Of course, we lost a lot of great warriors, but the people that came home that had things like post-traumatic stress, loss of limbs, there were real costs. So I just think you have to be careful. You don't want to do anything that's going to needlessly escalate the situation.
The only reason I ask is you criticize the president for his confusing policy. No offense, Governor, I'm confused by what yours would be. Are you against, if there are Iranian attacks on U.S. soldiers, responding to those attacks?
No.
By what you call
exactly.
Attacks on properties that might not be in Iran, but to go after Iran directly.
So we will defend. If you harm American service members, we will respond to deter you from doing that in the future.
Well, they've been harmed. Now, a good many of them 27 times, right?
Exactly. So, but I think the larger issue is why are those troops targets in the first place? Biden has not articulated their mission being there. So as commander-in-chief, you got to look, okay, what's the benefit of their being there versus what's the risk of them being there? And I think he does owe an explanation for that. But that's a separate issue from if there are pot shots taken at American troops, you respond. Now, you got to do that in a way that will deter them, but you also have to be mindful of what that means. But we're not just going to sit there and allow American troops to be attacked. That is obviously unacceptable.
Now, obviously, our presence has been beefed up in and around the Mediterranean, certainly outside with the USS Gerald R. Ford, USS Ronald Reagan, a host of other ships coming there. China, too, is in that neck of the woods. So it is building, and there is a building global presence here. Are you worried that this turns out to be a far bigger war?
Well, that's obviously a risk, and I don't know that that's in our interest to want to get involved in that. But you're right to point out the role that China is playing. China is one of the biggest benefactors of Iran. They're purchasing a lot of this oil on the black market. They're flooding the regime with billions of dollars. Iran, of course, is using that. So China really likes what's going on. I think China would like to see that this be a really long and difficult conflict in the Middle East. I think that they view that as within their interest. And I think they correctly think that it will take the eye off the ball from the Indo-Pacific, which is, of course, their primary area of concern.
You know, Governor, you've gotten some criticism, a good deal, in fact, for your call to ban pro-Palestinian groups from Florida colleges. Some are saying you're violating free speech rights. You've stuck to that proposed ban that others are saying is illegal. What do you say?
Well, it's not just pro-Palestinian groups, Neil. Students for Justice in Palestine, when the Hamas attacks were perpetrated, they put out a statement saying, we don't merely stand in solidarity with what happened, we are part of this. And so they've linked themselves to Hamas in a way that takes them out of First Amendment activity, and it's effectively material support for terrorism when you actually link with a terrorist group. So that was really jarring to see in our own country, because we can look at the radicalism on college campuses. I mean, I joke, I'm one of the few guys that got through both Yale and Harvard and came out more conservative than when I went in. That's not easy to do. But I look back when I was there, you would not have seen students right on the heels of a terrorist attack go in and celebrate that. I think this is kind of a new sickness that we're seeing in more modern, more recent years in these college campuses. And so the question for us is, you know, is this just something we're going to let to metastasize? Or are we going to say, no, making common cause with terrorist groups is a bridge too far? So we delisted Students for Justice in Palestine and Florida. What I also called for, and as president I would do this, any of those students who are foreign students who are on student visas, you know, if they're making common cause with Hamas, I'd cancel the visa and I would send them back to their home country.
You know, Governor, I'd be curious, you know, to get your position on the various aid packages that are in the works. This big one, the $106 billion one, that some Democrats, some Republicans are rallying around with military aid for Israel and Ukraine. Others in your party, particularly in the House, have said, go ahead and set aside funds for Israel, hold off on Ukraine. Where are you on this?
Yeah, I don't think that there should be a big omnibus package. I think the House is right on this. I think what they're doing to provide robust support for Israel while also paying for it is the way to go. Israel's a great ally of ours. We are going to support their right to defend themselves. We have a long-standing military relationship. We will continue providing them support so that they can fight and win this war. And we should all agree on that. Same time, we're also 33+ trillion in debt. So when you're supporting Israel, which we should do, I think what the House did to say, let's pare back in other areas, that represents sound judgment. That's what the Congress should be doing when these things happen as a matter of course. So my hope is that they can do the Israel, get that done, and I think that the American people will actually be impressed for a change to see Congress actually making decisions, actually having to set priorities, and helping an ally while at the same time not continuing to bankrupt this country.
I only ask you that in the context of the 24 race, Governor, because Nikki Haley has emerged as a strong polling favorite. She's tied with you in Iowa. And that has come really following her very tough talk on not only supporting Israel and Ukraine, but backing them both up with the money they need and not debating the issue now. Do you fear you're kind of threading the needle on this is hurting you? That she's clear, you're not. She's gaining, you're not. She's seen as an acceptable number 2 to Donald Trump, you're not.
Well, actually, I've been much clearer on Israel. I mean, I said from the beginning, no Gaza refugees. You know, she said that America has been able to separate terrorists from freedom fighters, and that's what we have to do. Now, she backtracked on that, but I've been very clear, no refugees. I've also been very clear, canceling student visas for pro-Hamas demonstrators. I've also been very clear, no taxpayer money to Hamas. They say it's humanitarian assistance, but the reality is Hamas will commandeer that, and they will use that to advance terrorism, which what they've been doing for over a decade. So we've been leading on all those issues. We've been standing very strong for the U.S.-Israel relationship, and we've really kind of set the debate, I think, in a way that's been very productive, and other candidates have had to follow suit from what we've said. Now, her position on basically a blank check for Ukraine, that is not popular with Republican voters. The federal government has borrowed money to send to pay the salaries of Ukrainian bureaucrats, the pension for Ukrainian bureaucrats. And actually, if you look at Israel, 75 years of a friendship, we've done about $158 billion over 75 years. U.S. just in the last year and a half, 2 years, has done 125 billion. So those are definitely different issues, and I think that voters see them differently. And that's the thing, as the president, as commander-in-chief, you have to be able to take each issue as you find it. You can't have a one-size-fits-all solution to everything. So we've been right on Israel, leading the way on that, and we'll continue to do that and stand strong.
So when it comes to Ukraine, just to be clear, Governor, Putin might be a big threat, but for Israel right now, what they're going through is a bigger threat. And that's where you draw the line, and then the money that is spent in that regard.
Well, what I would say this, Neil, is Israel is one of our strongest allies. We have a unique relationship with them. I think we have a lot of allies in Europe who have an interest in the Russia-Ukraine. I think Europe needs to do more. Some countries like Poland have done a lot, but others have lagged. So I just think the relationships are different in terms of that. And our relationship with Israel has really been one of the strongest relationships that we've had. That's a little bit different, of course, than what is going on in Europe right now. But one thing that Biden could do that would be helpful in both of these conflicts, well, two things. One, energy production here at home. When we're energy dominant, that's bad for Russia, Iran, and China. When we do a Green New Deal, that benefits Russia. It benefits Iran. It benefits China. The other thing he can do is start to get more serious about the Indo-Pacific. China's really getting a free ride right now. I think they love what's happening around the world, and it gives them the ability to pursue their interests in a way that U.S. deterrence probably isn't where it needs to be. So if he did those two things, I think it would help with both the Middle East, and I think it would help with Europe, because the amount of money that China, I mean, they're the main patron for Russia. They're buying gas, they're buying all this other stuff. If Russia didn't have that, and we were competing with them in energy better, they would not be able to continue funding this indefinitely.
You know, Governor, and you've been very patient. I know you have to go. You have been a closely watched candidate, always seen as the alternative to Donald Trump. I don't know if that holds on now with Nikki Haley and her surge. These are all polls, to your point. But I did want to get a sense from you what you make of former Vice President Mike Pence stepping out of the race. You had talked in the past that it would be a good idea to narrow this down to 2 to 3 people. If you do not emerge as one of those 2 to 3, would you step out of this race?
I am definitely going to be in the top, so we're ready for that, and we're going the distance. But people can make whatever decisions that they want. I respect the vice president's decision. I think he's a good man. I think that he's served the conservative cause, very well over a number of years. But I'm in it all the way. So you're going to be seeing a lot of me.
All right, even if you sink in the polls or others, particularly Nikki Haley, emerge stronger.
It's not about the polls.
You have to win Iowa. You have to win Iowa, in other words.
We're going to win Iowa, and it's important. Obviously, you need to win a majority of the delegates. That's the thing. But the one thing I would point out, I mean, some of these polls, even that poll in Iowa that you referenced, it showed that I have the highest percentage of Iowa caucus goers who are considering me, who would consider voting for me, even higher than Donald Trump, and that I had the highest net favorability of any by a pretty significant margin. So I think our work in Iowa has been good. We've covered a lot of the counties. We've gotten a lot of support that's been generated, and I think we've created a good impression. Now it's up to us over these next 80 days to bring that in for a landing, and when people go out to caucus, that I'm the guy that they're voting for. But we start right now in this final stretch run. We are in the best position in terms of our view of what the electorate views us, and I think that that's a testament to the hard work. A lot of this stuff has not been glamorous. It's not gotten a lot of headlines. We're going to small counties and we're meeting people and we're shaking their hand and we're answering their questions. But that's what you should do. That's the way these things are won and lost.
Got it. Governor DeSantis, great catching up with you. Be well.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.